Director for the Housing, Counseling and Education, who's going to be presenting the session. His cards are back there too, and mine are as well, just so that you know. And then, so thank you to MADA for providing this awesome space for us this evening to be able to do this session. And then also to HAP for your support in spreading word and for sponsoring the kids' entertainment outside so that we can have parents come without them having to worry about their children. So a few things about housing resources. So we work across the Western Slope, and we provide several different programs. More information about those at the back there. So we won't waste a whole lot of time talking about all of that. One of the key programs that we offer to the whole of our territory is our Housing, Counseling and Education program, and those services are designed for everybody from someone who's a renter to someone who is trying to get ready for home ownership, people who already own homes, and then folks who are also concerned about foreclosure as well. So we have a whole range of ways that we can support and assist residents along their whole kind of housing journey. So thank you for being here this evening. We're really excited to be able to offer in-person events and activities in Montrose again. We haven't done anything in person here for a while, so super exciting to have Jason come up from Grand Junction to provide this session for you all. I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and he's going to take it away. So thanks.
Thank you everybody for coming tonight. I know it's not exactly how we want to spend our evening, but I guarantee we'll make it worth your while. My name is Jason Kalunga. I'm the Director of Housing, Counseling and Education and Housing Resources. I've been in the mortgage banking business for about 20 years, and then housing, counseling, and education for another 5. So I've been doing this quite a long time, hence the gray and the there's a cause also, not to mention the 5 kids that I have. So today we'll talk a little bit about homeownership and the mortgage process and kind of what it takes and the steps you need to take to become a homeowner. There's a lot involved in it. When you're just starting on your own with no direction, it's a little bit harder to navigate the process. So hopefully we can ease your guys' fear of that, and knowledge is power. And the more you know, the easier it makes the process, and better equipped you are to ask the questions that need to be asked. So we'll talk about the pros and the cons of renting and homeownership. Discuss what qualifies, or what qualifying for a mortgage looks like, and we'll also talk about the different types of mortgage financing available and what to look for in that. And there's several different things, and we'll try this course normally we present on a Saturday, and it takes about 6 to 8 hours to go through. So we kind of condensed it. So I'll talk a little bit fast in some places, but if you have questions, please raise your hand and ask, interrupt. This is really informal, and this is for you guys. So don't be afraid to interrupt me and ask questions. Okay, is homeownership for me? Educate yourself. That's why we're here, right? So learn all we can about mortgage lending and the process of buying a home. Determine what you can afford. Comparing budgets for renting versus owning. Renting before was a lot cheaper than buying a home. It's kind of, for a while it was the other way around, and now it's kind of stabilized. So you'll see the pros of each and how that affects you in your decision making for buying a home. So you'll shop for the best deal. That will compare your budgets. Will help you shop for the best deal, and then selecting a real estate agent to help you through the process and what their role is, and then finding your home and making that offer. Pros of renting: cost. Right, we talked about that just a minute ago. That the cost of home ownership can sometimes be higher than renting. It's kind of about the same now. Things that you'll have to do on your own. So when you're renting, repairs, those are typically done by the landlord, right? So that doesn't come out of your pocket when you're renting a home. So think about that as we go through the next couple of slides. So ease of mobility. When you sign a lease, you sign it for how long typically?
12 months.
12 months, right? Years, sometimes 6, 9, but 12 is about the standard. So after you can pick up and leave. All right. The cons of renting: no tax advantages. When you buy a home, there's some tax advantages for you. Repairs, those are done on the landlord's time, right? So if your hot water heater breaks or your air conditioning goes out, guess what? We have to dial the 1-800 number, email the landlord, give them a call, send them a letter, send them a note, a text, whatever, right? And they'll come out. I can get out there in 2 weeks, so you're without hot water or air conditioning for 2 weeks. No asset building. When you buy a home, you can build equity, but when you're renting, you're building equity for somebody else. You're building wealth for somebody else.
Can you help understand equity a little bit?
We'll talk about that once we get a little further into the process. Yes, that's a great question. Lack of privacy. So what can the landlord do? If you puts a notice on your door, come into your house, right? As long as he gives you a notice, he can come in, so you lose that privacy. When you own a home, nobody can do that unless you allow that. Pros of homeownership, tax benefits. So some of that interest can be used on your taxes. Equity, the question we asked over here, what is equity? Equity is when you pay down your mortgage, it builds the value in your home. So whatever you pay down, you have as a value, like a savings account, using your house. So you can pull that money out to use for other things. Does that help?
Yes.
The easy way to say it, I think.
It's a very
Savings,
easy way to
again, that equity and savings kind of goes hand in hand. So you're building that equity creates a savings for you. Stability, homeownership is the number one cause for stability or instability. So if you have a house, you're building that savings, but then you're building something for your family as well.
I have a question. What's the tax benefit of being in a home ownership when you own your business?
When you own your business, that would be a great question for your tax advisor.
Okay.
I mean, we could give you that information, but we're not tax advisors.
Okay.
So we're not tax advisors, but when you have an office in your home, you can take the square footage of that office and disclose it to your accountant, and then they can account that against your taxes.
Thank you.
So that's part of it, but you have to be cautious too, because sometimes your house needs to be zoned in a commercial if you're running a business out of it. So make sure you check all the boxes.
Some loan programs won't allow that either. So
Yes.
be really, really careful with that. Great question. This is advanced homebuyer class. Okay, cons of homeownership, loss of mobility. Can't just pick up and leave. Oh, you can pick up and leave, but that destroys your credit, right? So we're looking at a 30-year commitment when you're buying a home. So if you want to leave, you have to get it prepared, you have to list it for sale, go through the sales process, all of that. So it takes a little bit longer than just at the end of your lease, give your landlord a 30-day notice and you're out. Increased cost of homeownership, maintenance. So we're renting a 800 square foot home, and now we bought this beautiful 1,500 square foot home. Guess what happens to our utilities? They go up, right? We have to maintain our yard. We have to maintain our sidewalks and driveways when it snows. So there's a lot of things that we have to look at when we're buying a home and making sure that we're preparing for that increased cost. Investment risk, appreciation versus appreciation. The market's good right now, right? You buy low, and as the market goes up, the value of your home goes up as well. But the same can happen when the market crashes. The value of your house could go lower. So if you're trying to sell your house, you may owe more than what it's worth. So planning for some of these things is going to be crucial when buying a home too. And when you take the full class, the 6-hour class, if you're getting down payment assistance or your loan requires it, we go into much greater depth and detail with that too. All right. So now that we know we want to either continue to rent or buy a house now, the next thing we want to talk about are the 4 C's of qualifying for a mortgage. Those are capacity, capital, collateral, and credit. Those are the things that lenders are going to look at when trying to get you approved for a mortgage. So understanding those will help you get prepared for the loan process. Capacity, your ability to pay back the loan. So when lenders are looking at your income, they're looking at your employment history, savings, and monthly debt payments. So we want to make sure that we understand what the loan requirements are going to be for that. And we'll talk more about debts, the debt ratios and the housing ratios as they pertain to your income. One thing to be aware of when we're looking at our income, we have to determine how they calculate that income, whether you're salary, hourly, or commission, have bonuses and overtime. So there's a real in-depth detail on what the underwriters, what the lenders are gonna look at when calculating that income. Even though you show that for the last year, you made $50,000 a year, but 50% of that was commission, they may not be able to use that full income. So understanding how that works is gonna help you with that process. When lenders are qualifying you guys for a mortgage, they use your gross income, which is the amount before taxes, right? Taxes, insurance, any of those things that come out. So when the lender does that, they may qualify you for more than what you can actually afford. So when we're looking at creating a budget and spending plan, we're gonna make sure we look at what you can afford versus what you can qualify for. It's always gonna be a little bit higher than what you can actually qualify for. And by creating those budgets and spending plans, it's gonna be huge. And it'll give you guys a leg up to know what you can afford going forward.
And affordability is different than comfort as well. Think about what you're comfortable with, because you could afford it, but yet not being comfortable with.
Right, so.
Budgeting is crucial.
Just a little story about that. When I bought my first house, I knew that I wanted to have a house payment of about $1,200. I rented a house for $700 and put $500 a month away in savings to make sure that I knew that I could do that comfortably. And if I wasn't able to put that $500 in the savings account and pull money out of it to make the ends meet for my house, then I knew that wasn't doable. So we did that for a full year, and then I used that extra savings for a down payment on my house.
Just note too, if you work on your credit, it's gonna affect your rate drastically. So if your credit is not great, take your time, build your credit before you apply.
Yep, and we'll talk about credit too.
So what happens if you have a loan for a vehicle and, you want to buy a house as well? Should you, pay off the vehicle first so that the bank is your, rather than you loan the house?
That's a good question. When they're looking at your income, they'll look at the number of debts you have, the payments that you have, installment loans, credit cards, and they'll take those payments and they'll use you have a percentage of your income that can go toward your installment loans or loans and credit card payments and your house payment. And that number typically for conventional is about 38%. For FHA with better credit, you're looking at about 43%, 41%. So right in that area. So if it's over that amount, then you're definitely going to want to look at paying that off before you apply for the mortgage loan. Otherwise, you won't qualify for as much of a home.
But make sure you check with your lender, because if you start the process and you're in the contract and then you pay your loan back, that may affect your rate as well or your contract. So make sure you check with your lender always, because they'll tell you the pros and cons of paying what off. And if you're already in the process and you're in the contract for a home and you were all approved with that loan, then if you pay it off, it's going to change everything. And then underwriting is going to question everything you're doing. So just be
So
cautious
your
to
question was
communicate.
before you start the process, that is correct.
Yeah.
But if you've already gone through the loan process, and we talk about this in the full loan plus as well, but you just put everything on hold. If you're approved for a certain amount, you just leave your finances the way they are. Don't make any large payoffs or deposit large amounts of cash into your account, because that can affect.
Or buy a new truck.
Right. You don't want to buy anything, open any new credit cards, because a lot of times what we'll see is somebody's approved for the house and they think, all right, I'm good, but I need new furniture. I need a new end table. I need a new couch. I need a new bed. I want to refurnish my whole house because it needs to look nice. They go out and get all these credit cards and loans and use all their cash to pay something off. Now they don't have enough cash to close. Their credit score has changed because they apply for new credit. Because when you apply for new credit, what happens to your credit initially? It dips a little bit, right? And we'll see how that impacts, like inquiries and new credit and all of that impacts your credit, your full credit profile in a minute. But it can change the approvability of your home if you do that. So we want to put all spending on hold at that point. Capital, readily available money and savings plus investments, properties, and other assets that can sell fairly quickly for cash. So when you close for a mortgage, when you're going through the mortgage process, they're gonna give you an estimated amount to cash to close. If you're getting down payment assistance, or if you're not, you're just bringing that cash to, and providing your own down payment, that'll all be listed on your loan estimate. And that's what it'll, at the very bottom of the page, it will tell you, this is how much you need to bring to closing. The underwriters are gonna look for that in your assets to make sure that you have enough to do that. Otherwise, we're gonna have to look at finding some other sources to, funds to close. And that's where it's good to have a good realtor to help you, with some of those details as well. And having these reserves proves that you can manage your money and have funds in addition to your income to pay the mortgage. So, you're out of work for a couple of weeks and you're not gonna get paid. And we wanna make sure that you're okay to continue living in that house without any big financial burden. Collateral. The house will be used to secure the loan. Okay, so it's kind of like a car loan, right? Go to the car dealership, you get a loan, and they hold the car as collateral until you pay it off. It's the same concept with the home. They're going to hold the home as collateral until the loan is paid off. Questions so far? I know we're going kind of quick, but I don't want to keep you guys here for 6 hours. I know I'm fun and cool to hang out with, but. All right, credit, the ability to borrow money or access goods or services with the understanding that you'll pay later. How do we find out what's on the credit report?
Credit report?
Exactly. We can get a free credit report.
TransUnion.
There are three major bureaus: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And your mortgage lender will pull a report that includes a report from all three of those. And they sort it out so you're not reporting two different debts. It merges those like accounts that each have, and then all the individual ones that each bureau have, because not everything is reported to all three. One can be reported to TransUnion, one can be reported to Equifax and Experian, but they don't always report to all of them. So when the lender pulls the credit report, it'll have all of your information. The next slide.
Question on the credit. Sometimes credit reports show discrepancies. What's the best way to resolve those discrepancies?
With a lot of the individual credit reporting agencies, you can go online and dispute any of that information. Just make sure you have some documentation to back it up, because a lot of times they'll ask you to upload that information to prove that it was inaccurate.
And how long will it take for that to be resolved?
You have 30 days to review your case and give a response.
It's timely and tidy, but it's worth it.
It is. We talked about the three major credit bureaus. Okay, what's on a credit report? You'll find that your name, social security number, address, employers, payment history, public records, including judgments, repossessions, bankruptcy, and inquiries. If you do find any, so what you want to do with your credit report is make sure that when you are updating your credit profile, you're going to want to make sure there's one name on your report, one address, and one employer, your most recent employer. You don't want them to put any information on there that they don't need to have on that. So you can send a letter to have them update your credit profile to each of the bureaus and get some of that other information off, because that helps disputing any inaccuracies a lot easier.
Can you talk a little bit about bankruptcies and how that affects your credit, and when are you able to go back and use your credit after the bankruptcy?
Well, depending on the type of bankruptcy, bankruptcy will stay on your credit for 10 years from the discharge, or for Chapter 13, I believe it's from the date that you apply for the bankruptcy. So those will stay on for 10 years. However, if you reestablished your credit within, I think FHA is 3 years, you can apply for another mortgage. It just depends on the underwriting guidelines for each loan program, but government is usually 3 years.
What about foreclosure? If you have foreclosure, how much do you wait to get a new loan?
Again, it just really depends on the underwriting guideline per loan program, but typically about 3 years. So
The underwriting guidelines harm your rate if you had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure within, let's say, 3 years.
absolutely, rate can play a big factor in, or credit can play a big factor in your interest rate. So the lower the credit rate, the lower the credit score, the higher the rate, or the higher the rate it will be. If you're doing conventional loans, that'll also play a factor in your private mortgage insurance. So if you don't put 20% down on a home, you're gonna have to pay mortgage insurance, either, with conventional, it's private mortgage insurance, with FHA, it's mortgage insurance premium.
The way you look at it is that for them, the higher the risk, the higher the rate. So if you had a foreclosure or if you had a bankruptcy, higher risk, higher rate.
Exactly.
What if you were able to bring up your credit to the 760?
That's gonna definitely help, but at the time period has
It
to
would
pass.
still be a.
720 is your key. Like if it's
No.
above 720, you're pretty good.
Yeah, not necessarily. So if you've gone past the timeframe allowed for their underwriters to even look at the loan and make you eligible for the loan again, whatever your rate is what whatever your score is gonna determine your rate. So that won't play as big a factor in your rate as long as your score is up, because then you've had the time to rebuild your credit for the 3 years. And as long as you've shown good payment history, then your credit score will go up and it'll be where you need it to be. Good questions. All right, so credit score, what they're gonna look at when determining your credit score, these companies is your payment history, the amounts owed, length of credit, types of credit, new credit, and inquiries. They're gonna look at all of that. Which do you think is the most important? Give me the top two. You guys think the top two most important things on here?
The amount owed and the type of credit, payment history.
Payment history, not so type, payment history. Those are our top three then? Not pardon?
The length of credit will also be one, because if you've only established credit in 1 year.
Right, it matters, right? This is my favorite graph of all time.
I love that.
Yeah.
So payment history is 35%, so that's a third of your credit. So amounts owed, those are 2/3 of your credit score. So if you apply for a new credit card, up here at 10% new credit, it's not gonna have as big of a hit to your credit as if you missed a payment. So it's gonna have 3 times the effect on your credit by missing a payment rather than applying for new credit. That's why when you apply for credit, you'll see it dip just a little bit, and then as you show them payment history, then it'll shoot right back up. Amounts owed is a big one, so we want to keep our credit card utilization below 30%. Right around 15% or lower is better. It has the biggest impact to your credit. That's the quickest and easiest way to improve your credit.
And what that means is, if I'm correct, is that if you have 10,000 that you're allowed to spend on your credit card and you only spend 3,000 or below, that's your amount owed, and that should be below that 30%. What they're trying to determine is that you have access to all this money, but you're not using it all when you can't afford it.
It wants to show that you're responsible with your credit.
Correct.
How long does it take to establish credit?
It doesn't take long at all. I mean, if you have no credit, the easiest way to build credit is go to a credit union, get a secured credit card, use it, pay it off, for about 3 months, and you'll see your credit increase quite a bit.
Okay.
Now, do you need credit to get a home? Do you need credit to get a home?
You don't need it.
So with an FHA loan, you don't have to have, if you pull your credit and there's absolutely nothing on there, they can use alternative forms of payments. So anything you pay monthly, utilities, cell phones, rent, insurance, medical payments, anything you pay monthly, as long as it's paid on time and they can show history of that, they can use that to qualify you for a mortgage.
What about medical debt?
As long as you're making a payment on it. and you can show payment history, and it's paid monthly.
But that's a certain place, right? Like, that's not just a bank.
That's an FHA program, it's an FHA. So any mortgage company that does FHA, they can use that same credit qualifying
Do
balance.
all mortgage companies do FHA or just some?
Not all do
Okay.
them, most do them. You
What does
have
FHA stand for?
Federal Housing Administration.
Okay.
So, but the way FHA got started in doing loans was that there was a big disparity between people that could afford the 20% down. So a lot of people couldn't afford the 20% down, but they were credit worthy to buy a home. So FHA said, okay, we'll let people buy homes with a lower down payment, but we're gonna charge you a mortgage insurance. So that way if you default, we're covered. Not you, but we're covered for that bad debt. So that's how FHA was born with a lower 3.5% down payment.
Is Navista FHA?
I do not know if they are FHA.
Yes, they do FHA.
No.
Most lenders in town do FHA. Honestly, everyone that you see, Cornerstone, Geneva Financials, all of those lenders do FHA.
Okay, thank you.
Colorado Finance, what is CAFA?
Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. So they offer down payment assistance. They do have a loan portfolio, but you'll go through your regular mortgage lender to get those products.
Would it be better if we could get that?
Better is probably not the best term I would use. It's just another option. So depending on your credit score, the amount of down payment, that would help you determine what type of loan that you can get. So you're working with a mortgage loan officer or loan officer that's seasoned, that's been around in business a long time, they'll be able to help you determine what the best avenue is. So if you don't have a lot of money to put for a down payment, FHA may be the way to go. But if your credit score is high enough, private mortgage insurance may be a better option because it's less than what you would pay for the mortgage insurance premium. And with FHA, if you put it less than 10% down, mortgage insurance will stay on the FHA loan for the life of the loan. Whereas private mortgage insurance will fall off after 11 years, or 78%.
Unless you refinance.
Right,
Then that
but we're
can-
not talking about refinance right now, we're talking about just the individual loan. But yeah, once you refinance, it changes the whole game.
And the CHAFA is available and your lender can help you, but when he says it's not always the best option, it's because CHAFA feels like free money, but it's built into your payment.
Actually,
So it tricks
so-
you a little bit to say.
So with CHAPA, they do a silent second for the down payment, so there's no payments required. But when you sell the home or refinance, then that amount will have to get paid back.
So if you do pay 10% down on an FHA loan, how long would the mortgage insurance have to last?
11 years.
11 years.
11. So when you're looking at a conventional loan, it takes about 11 years to get to 78%.
Okay.
That's the magic number.
Gotcha.
So if you're applying for like, let's say a $450,000 home, and they want you to put 10% down of the loan, and that's 4,000, 5?
10% of 400.
It's 45,000.
45, I'm sorry. And so that's all due at signing?
Correct.
Wow.
So that's the beauty of FHA is their down payment requirement's 3.5%, but then you can partner with CHAPA for down payment assistance, and hopefully, knock on wood, we've applied for a down payment assistance program to the state to run a program. Hopefully, we'll get that, but there'll be a big news article and blast once that happens. But CHAPA will help with that down payment assistance, and there's some requirements to do that, like having a certain amount of your own money into the transaction to be approved for that.
Okay.
How about property? You have existing,
Lender.
a mobile, and you want to use that as collateral?
So there's some requirements for having a mobile with a mortgage. We can talk more about that offline because that's a whole thing in itself, but I'll talk to you more about that offline. Okay, other questions? Great questions, guys.
So what would the benefit be if you get a loan under HUD?
Through FHA.
Besides from FHA, the housing development, urban development, was the biggest difference from an FHA loan?
Well, HUD runs FHA, so I'm not quite understanding the question. What loan are you?
You mean if the
talking about?
property is HUD?
Yep,
So if the property is HUD and owned, it's most likely a foreclosure, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest difference, is that you're getting a, I mean, if
A
I'm
foreclosure,
understanding your
it's-
question correctly.
Yeah, if you're buying a HUD home, which is a foreclosed home, there's really no difference. The only big difference between buying a HUD home and getting FHA finance is that they're not required to make any repairs to the property. So it's basically an as-is home. So if it doesn't pass FHA inspections, then you have to look at a different loan product or a different type of loan altogether. However, FHA does offer 203K loans, which are rehabilitation loans. So say you want to buy this fixer-upper, you go through a special program through FHA, and it's like new construction. They say, okay, once you make all these repairs and additions or whatever you want to do to rehabilitate the home, we'll give an estimated appraisal. Then we use that value to determine your loan amount.
Is that called acquisition construction?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. Okay, the different types of mortgages, government insured loans, FHA, minimum down payment requirements about 3.5%. And then your question, acquisition, rehabilitation mortgages to the 2 or 3K. Those are the fixer-upper loans for FHA. There are VA loans with 0 down payment requirements, and then rural development with 0 down payment. And there are RD 502 direct loans, so directly through rural development for rural areas. Montrose, I believe is Montrose ready?
yes.
I think they're already right.
Yes.
There's a map that you can look up, go to the RD website and look up to see if they're in RD territory, RD approved areas, 4 counties, I think it is. Whoa.
Whoa, party time.
Yeah. Disco time, let's go. All right. Asking 2 difficult questions, I gotta go. Types of mortgage loans, so conventional loans. So this is another type of conventional, any loan that's not insured or guaranteed by the federal government. Fannie and Freddie Mac purchase loan from lenders to replenish this product, that's not really a big deal. Down payment requirements are 3 to 20% on a conventional loan. They'll typically do the 3%, but your credit score has to be really, really good for that to happen, and low debt to income. So not a lot of debt compared to the amount of money that you make. You can still use down payment assistance with some of these conventional loans, however it can affect the rates. Flexible mortgage insurance options. So with a conventional loan, it's the amount of down payment and your credit score is going to determine that private mortgage insurance rate. So the more down payment and higher credit score, the lower PMI.
Also, make sure you talk to a lender, because there is a new program that you can buy down your rate.
That's a 2-1 buy down. It's not a new program. It's been around for 125,000 years. It's been around, but before nobody really needed to use that because the interest rates were super low. But as the rates climb, but you also have to understand that if you do like a 2-1 buy down, you buy the rate down a point for a certain period of time, knowing that rate will adjust and your payment will go up as well.
Yeah.
So talking with the lender, we see this a lot with people that want to buy a home, live in it for a couple of years and then plan to move. Great. And the market's doing really well. It's okay to do that. But again, a lender will help you determine whether that program or product is good for you.
And if you have the right realtor to help you, they can make the seller pay for it with seller's concessions.
Right. And like I said earlier, finding a good realtor will help you with some of these things and
Closing costs.
closing costs, the cost of doing the mortgage.
Especially the market is shifting, and now we find that we can ask for those. We haven't been able to ask for those for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people were able to snatch these houses up.
Now we get to ask.
More than what they were selling or what the appraised values were.
And so if you have sales concessions, assistance with CHAFA for your down payment, you can potentially have a home with no money down.
It's actually for Chaffee, you're required to have $1,000 of your own money into the transaction, so you can be in a home for $1,000.
What does CHAPA stand for?
Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. And then with conventional loans, they typically have stricter credit qualifying or credit underwriting guidelines.
It's great long term though.
Okay. What's included in a mortgage payment? So when we're looking at a mortgage payment, lenders are going to talk to you about PITI. What that is that's the acronym for what's all included in your mortgage payment. So the P is principal, the I is interest, the T is taxes, and the other I are interest, and then insurance is the other I. And then mortgage insurance is our PMI or MIP if your down payment is less than 20%. So why is it important to know that?
Because we want to know what we pay every month.
Right, we want to know where our money's going. Every time we write that check, how much is going to the principal, how much is it, am I paying my loan down? At the very beginning, it's very little compared to the interest. And as time goes, you'll see the swap. So later on in the loan, you'll see more going to the principal than to interest. Most lenders will set up an escrow account to pay your taxes and insurance for you. So you pay that monthly, that goes into a separate account. And then when taxes are due, they'll send a check out to the assessors. And when your interest is due, or the insurance is due, they'll send a payment out to the insurance company. But they set all of that up at closing for you. So most people think that you get a house payment, it stays the same for the life of the loan. It doesn't. It will change depending on taxes and insurance. As the insurance go up, they'll have to adjust your payment to include the increase in insurance. Same thing with taxes. If property values go up, your taxes go up. But if property values go down, your taxes will go down as well, based on the county rates. Any questions on that?
Is that what's happening right now? Taxes every couple of months and another quarter?
Well, every year they'll adjust for your home. They adjust every year.
Every other year in Colorado.
Every other year. So you
Oh,
get 2 years.
it won't go up automatically.
They just did it in 2022. They did an assessment, and then in 2024 you'll get your next assessment.
What does escrow mean?
It's just an account where they set aside for your taxes and insurance to go, your tax and insurance payments to go into. And then every year they're going to send a statement to you showing all the payments going in and when the insurance and the taxes were paid. And if they've collected too much, they send you a nice little check at the end of the year.
The reason they have to put it in a separate account is because it's not their money, it's yours, but because they're not sure what they owe yet and they only pay it once a year, but they collect from you every month, they need a separate account to say it's your money, not ours, and we're not touching it. That's what an escrow account is.
Yep.
Who's they, me?
The bank
The
or whoever
mortgage
you have your
servicer.
loan with. Yeah. That's what an escrow account is. It's your money, you
Taxes
manage
paid
it.
once a year here.
Yes.
In Mesa County, they're paid twice. Several counties throughout Colorado, they're paid twice.
They charge for twice a year, but with the lender, they pay once a year.
We pay twice in Mesa County.
But is there fees for family?
Okay, why interest rates play a big role in qualifying for a mortgage?
That's a good one.
So if we look at previously, so loan amount for $350,000 at a 2.75% 30-year mortgage, your principal and interest payment would be $1,425. So home values have increased by 80% since January 2017 in Mesa County. So I'd imagine they're pretty close here in Montrose. So if we look at our loan amount, same loan amount, 5% interest rate for 30 years, that payment went up $450. So we talk about interest rates and buy downs. That's a great self-employed people, as they evaluate your income and business is starting to pick up. Maybe a great opportunity for you to get in at a lower rate and then let it adjust each year.
But the seller paid for it.
Yep, and then let seller pay for it. Then you're really not out anything. It does have to be paid for either by you or seller. So just know that. All right, questions?
Yo, real quick, sorry, what's that buy down Is it like a 2-1 or something?
It's a 3-2, there's different buy
I
down
need a
types.
name.
Yeah, it's buy down, that's all it is. It's a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down. Those are the two most common that we see right now.
In other words, you're putting the money up front to have,
A lower
to
rate.
lift those rates and to have a lower payment for the first couple of years. And so either in the future you refinance, or like he was saying, if you know you're just gonna stay a couple of years in the home, then you can sell, you're fine. But if you refinance in a couple of years, when the rates are lower, hopefully, that's the goal of the buy down. And the seller can finance that through what's called seller's concessions at closing, where they pay for your closing costs through your loan and your buy down, but they have to agree to that. But that's what you can do. Those are options that people are not aware that they can actually ask for that in this market.
And it's super important to find a realtor that understands that. That way they can help you through that process and help you determine whether that's a good fit for you or not. Yes, ma'am.
How much, when it comes to getting a lender, how much does age play a role in that? Like, if the mortgage rate is going to be 30 years and you're 50, you can be theoretically 80 by the time it's paid for, would they really lend you that money?
They can't discriminate based on age.
Oh.
You can be 99, go in for a mortgage, and as long as your income, credit, and assets qualify, they have to give you that loan. They can't discriminate based on age. Great question.
That is a good question.
What are the questions you guys have? This is your time to ask anything you want.
Can you talk a little bit more about down payment assistance? Sometimes I feel like it's not mentioned enough for families who do not meet the requirement or do not have the funds to buy a home.
Sure. There are a few programs that are available for down payment assistance programs. I mean, the biggest player in town right now is Chaplain. They provide the most down payment assistance, so they'll give you up to the 3.5% minus the $1,000 for a down payment. And they piggyback off the FHA approval, so really there's not a lot they have to do to be qualified for that. There's some other down payment assistance programs, CHAC, Impact Development Fund, that you're able to use them, but you're not able to use them with FHA in some cases. So it really depends on the loan product that you're getting and what type of loan you're getting. That will help you determine what down payment assistance program is available to you. So they'll do up to the full 100% minus the 1,000.
For example, I think the buy down might not be, you can't do it with Chafa, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, there is one that you can't do with Chafa, but I can't remember which one.
So what about like the first owner, first buying?
First time home buyers?
Yeah, does that first time home buyer, does that work with Chapa? or
It
is
does.
that totally-
So to be eligible for CHAPA down payment assistance, you have to be a first time home buyer. So what that means is the IRS's definition of first time home buyer is you've not had ownership in a primary residence for more than 3 years. So after 3 years, you owned a home, you sold it, you haven't owned a home for 3 years, now you're eligible as a first time home buyer again.
And all these, the loan, the down payment assistance, is this something your loan, whoever you're going through your loan, they put it on the table for you?
Yes.
They should be looking for these things for you?
Yep.
Or do you bring these up, or?
You get it, like I said, knowledge is power. So these are questions that you can ask. So when you're shopping for a mortgage, shop. I mean, we don't go to the car dealership and say, okay, I'm buying this car right here, this is the one I want. You're gonna look around, right, to see, okay, does this dealership have this car, same features, everything that I like? Does this one fit me better? Is it cheaper? Is the interest rate better? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna shop a few different lenders, get your loan estimate sheet, and then sit down and compare them and see which is the best.
They all have
Does that
different
affect
fees.
your credit to go to different lenders and shop at different?
When you go to a lender, you don't have to have them pull credit. You can say, I'm just trying to pre-qualify. So there's 3 different things. There's pre-qualify, pre-approval, and full loan commitment.
Okay.
So when you're pre-qualifying, you just give them a snapshot of your finances and you say, I don't want you to pull credit. Based on this scenario, I have $10,000 in the bank. I have a car loan for $350, credit card payments totaling $300, and I make $5,000 a month.
And I know my credit.
My credit score is a 720. What would my rate be for a mortgage and how much would I qualify for? And they'll just run the scenario for you, print it out. So this, based on the information you gave me, this is what you would qualify for. And it's not binding because you're just verbally telling me. So then we move to the next phase. Before we start shopping for a home, we want to be pre-approved. We're gonna now provide pay stubs, bank statement, tax returns, and then allow them to pull a credit. Then they're gonna say, okay, yep, she was right, 720 credit score. She's got $15,000 in the bank, more than she said. She's estimated a little higher in credit cards. She makes this much money. Okay, now we're gonna approve you for a $350,000 loan.
This is the letter you need when you put an offer down on a home.
Right.
It's a pre-approval letter from your lender knowing that they've ran your credit and they know. But that's when they also have to disclose to you their fees and their closing costs. And that's when you can shop them. That's when you can go from one to the other. But when you do that, don't do one a week or one every other week, because then your credit will get hit every time.
Yeah, they
Do
should-
them all the same day or the same few
They
days.
should disclose their fees when you're doing your pre-qualification too.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't have to wait for them to pull credit for them to tell you your fees, because then you can't legitimately shop. So they have to give you those, they're required by law to give you those fees ahead of time if you ask for them. You can just say, what are your fees? For a $300,000 loan, you don't even have to know anything else. And they have to give you what their origination fees are if they charge one, appraisal costs, credit report fees, any loan processing fees that they have. They'll list all of that out for you, and then what the market rate is at that time for whatever amount you give them.
Okay.
Can I see the new units across the street right there?
Base camp, yes.
Okay, then what is the advantage of buying to rent one of them?
So they're only for rent. Base camp is not for sale.
Yeah.
It's only to rent.
But they'll rent for, those are the low income ones, they'll rent for about.
It's not affordable housing. It's not affordable housing, no. They call it obtainable housing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
It's very different. It's not affordable housing, it's obtainable housing.
What do they call
Obtainable,
it?
which means it should be market rate.
Okay, you're gonna pay what, about $1,400?
It's gonna regulate itself really, really quick.
Yeah, and so,
$1,600
buy
one bedroom, $2,100 two bedroom.
It's 97 units they're gonna hit all the market at once, and it's gonna
you're gonna
regulate.
pay $2,000 a month could you do that, buying a home?
Absolutely. Again, it's really gonna determine on what the purchase price of your home is gonna be. So that's why it's important to go in and get that qualification, say, okay, understand what your credit is, how much you make, and they're gonna tell you what you can afford. They're gonna say, you can buy a house that's up to $200,000, your payment's gonna be $1,500 on the estimate.
Yeah.
And it could be a lot cheaper. So in this scenario, let's go back one. So in this scenario, at 2.75%, you're gonna pay $1,429 plus taxes and insurance. So that payment's probably gonna be more like $1,700. So you asked about the $2,000 mark. In that scenario, yes. This one, it'd be a little bit more. So maybe you want a $250,000 home. And you calculate that along with taxes and insurance, and that may be right around the $2,000 mark anyway. So it's more advantageous to buy a home at $2,000 a month versus renting for $2,000. But then we look at maintenance costs too.
What's the percentage rate right now?
7.5%.
Is that below?
No,
They got,
Well, if you look at the last 20 years of rates, it's average. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, that's really high. It's double what it's been.
when I started in that business, this was like back in 2006-ish in mortgage. People were killing refinancing at like 8.5%, and just rates were 11 and refinancing to 8%. It was crazy. And then they dropped even more to 5%, so they refinanced again. because it
When
made sense.
was that bubble? When it burst?
2008.
That's what you're talking about.
But, I mean, look what happened, we had a big bust, and then 2, 3 years ago, rates were 4%, 3.5%.
The last 3 years, they've been at 3 or
I bought my
less.
house in 2020, and it was 3.5% was my rate.
How many homes have you bought since?
3.
3?
My first home was, I think, 8%, but it was $110,000. Yeah.
That's cute.
We sold the house for 220, like 5 years later, so. What are the questions? Great questions, guys.
So, when you're looking for a realtor, well, my first realtor question is, do they have certain areas, like if I wanna look at Ridgeway and Montrose, I need to talk to Ridgeway and Montrose, or like a Montrose person should be able to cover the whole area?
Yep. Yeah, they should be able to cover the whole area.
I'm Delphine, I'm a realtor. I'm Delphine, I'm a realtor, I can help you. But, no, it's important that you partner with someone who sticks with you and really understands what you want, so they can look in Montrose and Ridgeway and Kelowna and really cover that whole area. If you talk to one realtor in one area, another realtor in another, and then you're having them essentially compete with one another, and you're not gonna get the results that you want.
Right. So again, with anything that you do consumer-wise, you always shop. Interview 3 realtors and just say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Talk to them and make sure they have that good rapport with them, because if not, then it makes it difficult to have them on your side or feel like they're on your side when you're buying a home.
Test their knowledge for sellers concessions and contracts, because that's when they're gonna help you the most, is to say, let's pay for your closing costs, let's buy your rate down, you want someone who's knowledgeable about the programs to work with your lender and get you the best deal and the best term. The contract is 33 pages. And so when people say, oh, it's all about the price, it's really not. Sellers are looking at the terms of the contract, and sometimes the terms are better than the price. So it's important to work with someone who understands the contract, works to make it work for you, work for the seller, and that you get the best out of it.
What are your keywords?
Seller's concessions is number one. Seller's concession, they need to understand that concept and not be afraid to ask. Not be afraid. Some realtor will tell you, I'm not gonna go below asking price. Why not? You're representing me.
Right, the realtor works for you.
They work for you, and it's important. So in Colorado, there are 4 ways as a real estate agent to represent a client. Seller's agent, which your loyalty is then with the seller. Buyer's agent, loyalty with the buyer. Transaction broker, they came up with that because if you want to sell both sides, so you call me because you like the house I have listed. And I tell you, ooh, of course, this is great for you because I'm representing the seller right now. But I'm going to switch to a transaction broker so I can represent the both of you, and my loyalty legally is only with the transaction. No longer with you, no longer with the seller. But I can represent the 2 of you and I'll get 2 commissions. So it's important that you have a realtor that is your buyer's agent. Sign a buyer's agent agreement. Don't be afraid of that, because that means that their loyalty lays with you and that they have to be by you. And then when they tell you, oh, it's free, it's not free. We're paid by the seller. So the seller at closing will pay the buyer's agent. So as a buyer, you have this strength that you get to pick, and you don't pay that person, but they'll get paid for serving you. So keep that in mind. They need to know about your contract. They need to know about your seller's concessions. They need to know about who's going to pay for appraisal, who's going to pay for inspections, negotiate for you, and be your representative. And the 4th way they can represent you is as a customer only, and they have no obligations to you. You do not want that. So you want a buyer's agent. That's what you want. Customer. If I treat you as a customer, I owe you nothing. And I won't even get paid.
It's like looking for realtors like lawyer. Whiplash
Yeah,
Willie or.
experience is really crucial when you're looking for lenders and real estate agents.
Yeah, it's important.
So do you need to find your agent first, or do you need to go to the lender and get, like, which one needs to be first?
I'm gonna let him answer.
Yeah.
I wanna see what he's gotta say.
There's really no preference. I mean, you can choose either one. Realtors are less likely to show you a home or be able to show you a home unless you have that pre-approval.
The right realtor is gonna ask you, who are you working with? And they're gonna have someone they like to work with. And they'll tell you, this person is good, these are my top 3, go shop them, tell me which one you like. Because your realtor should be like this with your lender. When we put an offer down, we want a pre-approval from your lender, we wanna know exactly where you're at. My first call when you ask me to show you a home is your lender. Hey, I'm looking at this house on blah, 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 but it's 30,000 more than what they told me they could afford, can they afford it? Your lender says go, I go. Your lender says, give me a minute, I wait.
All power comes from that approval.
Yes,
So once you have that pre-approval in hand, then you have more leverage
yes,
with everything.
You
Realtor
work in
and
Montrose?
sellers of homes, so.
that's where I work.
So if I go to her and say, okay, I've got my pre-approval, I wanna look at this house, she's like, all right, we're on. Are you available in 15 minutes?
Well, and honestly, in Colorado, it's our duty as realtors to explain what I just explained to you,
Right.
which is the buyer agent role, the seller agent role. And me personally, I'll make you sign that I just walked you through it. Because in Colorado, it's our duty. And if somebody asks me, hey, have you talked to these people about what their rights are? Then I can say, yep, I told them. And it's not a contract, it's just a sheet that says exactly what I just told you about loyalty and so on and so forth. But it's my duty to do that as a realtor. And if no one tells you anything about that and just shows you a house without telling you what their duties are to you and their obligations,
Then it's bad, yeah.
Is that what you would call fiduciary?
fiduciary duty, yes, 100%. That's what we have to establish before we start working with you. What is gonna be my obligation to you, my fiduciary duty? If I'm your buyer's agent, then I owe you pretty much everything.
Loves land.
That's right.
Firstborn. Yeah.
That's right. We tried that, when we had multiple offers and all. I'd be like, come on, I'll throw in the car. Just kidding.
Great questions. What other questions you guys have?
Doesn't the buyer have to bring money at the closing? Like when it's time to really sign papers?
It really depends.
To bring
So
cash?
that's kind of a tricky question. So
It's a good
depending
question.
on what your real estate agent can get out of the seller, as far as seller concessions, paying your closing costs, you get your down payment through CHAPA. So it's very possible you can come to the table with no closing. You do have to pay your earnest money deposit, which is a good big deposit to say that you're serious about buying this house, and appraisal and any inspections that you have to have. I would make sure you have the money for that, and likely that's all you would have to bring to closing.
The inspection is the number one thing you're gonna pay when you're in the contract, the first thing you're gonna pay. It's worth every penny, because if there's something wrong with the house, that's the only bill you're gonna be stuck with, is the inspection. But if you're out of contract because of inspection, then it was worth every penny. It's about anywhere between $350 to $500. So you need that.
Is that different than an appraisal or the
Yes.
same thing?
Not the same
The
thing.
inspector will look for mechanical issues.
And
with the
if
house.
the inspector really will look at everything to see if it's working, and if there is any water leaks, or if there is anything that he's suspecting that it could be wrong with the house, the age of the roof, so on and so forth. The appraisal is only to justify the value and to tell the lender, yes, this house is worth this much and it can be collateral for this much. That's the difference between appraisal and inspection. And that's why you do inspection first. Because if you do inspection and there's something wrong with the house, you paid the $400 or $500 of inspection, you're out of your contract. If you do your appraisal first, it's $800 at least.
Yeah.
And when you're done with appraisal and then you do your inspection and there is something wrong, you still have to stick that bill of appraisal. So always do your inspection first, then you do your appraisal. And when you write your contract, you have deadlines on all of these things. And those dates are not there for fun on your contract. Make sure that your realtor keeps you on track for those dates. Because if you pass a date and you're like, oh, I just found out something's wrong with the window, well, you passed your inspection date and now it's too late. And if you want to change it, then you'll be either in breach of contract or you have to find something else and lose your earnest money. So these are really, really important steps.
you can't run around and look at an inspection or an appraisal every house you look at, right?
Not every house you look at, but every house you're serious on and you put an offer down, yes.
Yeah, that has to be the one.
It has to be the one.
Correct.
And again, when you put an offer on a house, there's that little sentence that nobody reads at the bottom of the contract that says, this offer is made in good faith that we want to carry on with the contract. So when you read that sentence, right, that means that your intention is to buy the house. So you intend to see this contract through. So you can't put multiple offers on different houses because you intend to go through with the contract that you are under.
Yeah, you can't see
So
which one's
once
gonna
you
be ready
sign a
first.
contract, again, these are not, ooh, this house looks nice, let's put an offer down. No. This is the house I want. This is how I want to move forward. These are legal documents that are binding and have high consequences, right? So know what you sign, read your contracts, because it's important.
So you're gonna have an appraisal and a
Inspection?
inspection, no matter what, probably.
Once you're under contract,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, once you.
If you're not in the contract, you can't do it because you won't have access to the house.
So what is
Yeah,
that,
the question.
about 13, 14?
Is the inspection fee something that the buyer has to come up with on their own, or is that included with the
No.
house purchase? So you
No,
pay
you
for it
pay
out
for
of
that out of
pocket?
pocket, yep.
It's a
So
good
every
question.
time I want a house inspected, it's $400 to $500 out of pocket.
It's out of pocket, but your appraisal can be built in your closing costs, which can be paid by the seller's concessions. Only appraisal, not inspection.
Just
Good
a
question.
yes.
Thank you.
And how much is earnest money? Is that a couple thousand, like just ballpark?
I don't know what the average.
I'm gonna say
Mesa
the
County,
average
it's about
here-
2,000.
Yeah, the average here is 1% of the price of the home, so anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000. Some sellers will set it higher, so they only get serious inquiries because you have to put that money down. But it's really depends on the price of your home and the seller. When the house is listed, your realtor can tell you what the seller wants for earnest money. It's listed on the
You
home.
can negotiate that though.
You can.
And when do you have to put that money down? When you're like signing the contract?
So when you sign the contract and you make an offer, once it's accepted, then you owe the earnest money within 3 days. Yes. And that holds the contract together.
Question, for those houses that have a for sale sign by the owner, what are the major pros and cons?
That is a good question. Go, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
Buyer beware, right?
We are a state. Colorado is a buyer beware state, so it's all on you.
Yep, it all falls on you.
So get help.
You don't have anybody walking you through the program, so if you're dealing with somebody that's really savvy, they're waiting for that one little mistake to
Get help. If you're already working with a realtor, a good realtor doesn't mind going to a for sale by owner. Say, hey, I drove by this house and I like it. That realtor will reach out and say, I will do this transaction, and they will ask the seller to pay them. It's not your responsibility, but it is important that you're represented. Honestly, I've seen things.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. I wouldn't try to enter the contract on my own. With real estate, there's too many things that are, that's why
Are there
I
any pros to that?
The commission.
you don't have to pay a commission on it.
But you're not paying it, the seller is,
But
always.
yeah. I mean, that's personal preference, really.
Yes.
I mean, I would always consult with a professional. You don't want an exterminator to come to your house
Would
with.
the title company be sufficient?
No, the
No.
title company is only liable to
Okay.
have you a clear title.
Right, they only ensure that the
Yeah.
property is clear.
They'll call me and say, hey, Delphine, we have this transaction. Can you help for a small fee? I'm just saying, I think it's important too, and I know I'm a realtor, so it's easy for me to say. But even if it's a real estate lawyer, it's better to then have a real estate lawyer invested in the transaction than no one. Because there is just so much room for interpretation and mistakes.
Just errors. Yeah.
Yes.
That again is Whiplash Willie or?
Yeah, exactly.
Because we are a buyer beware state, once it's sold and you have done this transaction, you cannot go back. You can't say, "Ooh, the seller didn't tell me this." Yeah, they're supposed to disclose it to you by law, but it's a buyer beware state, so you're not gonna be able to go after anything after it's sold. So get a lawyer if you don't want a realtor.
Right.
Real estate lawyer.
Are there any lenders here in Montrose or Junction that work with people with ITIN?
There are, we were just talking about that, Alvin
Yeah,
Bank
talk about
has
it.
done.
Talk
Um,
about those, please.
Pardon?
Talk a little bit about those.
So, yeah, there are certain lenders in town that will do the ITIN loans, Alpine's a big one. New Vista will do them now, but they're typically higher down payment requirements, like 20% down, some job requirements for those as well. So.
And there's no system for first-time buyers on ITIN?
Not that I'm aware of right now. I'm still trying to do some digging with that and learning about a new product actually today, another lender that does them. He's still trying to find out some more information about that too.
What kind of loans is that?
I think,
So that's when you don't have a social, you
yeah,
have
it
an
says
ITIN number
taxpayer ID number.
instead of social security.
Yeah. So,
It can be trickier for an ITIN holder to secure.
right.
So some of our local lenders they do have products. New Vista, has a product, and, Alpine Bank has a product too. But, so the best thing to do is if you're using an ITIN number, if you have an ITIN number instead of a social security number, go and actually talk to those lenders and find out what their requirements are.
Make sure that you understand the type of loan that you're getting into.
Yes, because it gives higher risk, higher rates,
Right.
and higher
Yeah,
down
rates will
payments.
typically be higher. The credit qualifications are gonna be a little bit higher too. So they'll get a 3-year employment history before they'll even look at those loans, so.
And read whatever you sign.
But
20%
what
down.
happens like if you apply with an ITIN and then a couple of years later you get a social?
Then you refinance under that social. Absolutely, because then your rate will drop dramatically.
I guess the takeaway is it's not impossible to get a mortgage with an ITIN number. It's
Yes.
completely possible.
Right.
It can be more difficult.
So you're seeing more and more lenders start to get into the ITIN realm. I was at Housing Colorado conference last year, and that was one of the courses I was in, that more lenders are trying to get on board with that. It's a big niche. There's a lot of people that need that.
And they used to do it, I remember in 2006. A lot of people in ITIN bought houses.
So they're back on that wave again. So absolutely possible to do it.
Yeah, it's pricey, but
It is pricey. And the down payment requirement's huge. Okay, good question. Any other questions?
you haven't asked any questions. Are you
You did,
curious?
yes, one.
Oh, I did.
Fine.
Yeah. Oh, yes, one.
One.
All right, well, thank you guys for showing up. If you guys have any further questions, you guys just want clarification on anything, my card's in the back, grab a card. We can do the pre-purchase counsel for free. So if you want to schedule a pre-purchase counseling session, we can sit down and look at your income, assets, credit. And if you're not ready, we'll get you there.
You're out for Junction?
I am, but we can do it over the phone or Zoom, or I can make a trip down.
Okay, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank
For
you.
information.
Well, and bear in mind, you don't wanna be waiting until, I think I might be ready to buy a house
26
tomorrow.
less.
You wanna be, if you think that you might be interested in such a house at any time in the next 24 months, start the process with Jason today, because it doesn't cost you anything, right? So why not? And that way, the better shape you can get your finances in, the better, the more you can save in terms of your down payment, the more, you can do on your credit score. You can do a lot in a short period of time, but imagine how much more you can do, you give yourself a little more time.
It doesn't seem as hard to do because we're really budget focused. So we look at budget and a spending plan, and we identify wasteful spending, and we help to transition from that over several months into a more solid budget and more responsible. So we're, like me, Starbucks was really bad for me. I would go twice a day. It's horrible. I'm embarrassed to tell the story. But we stopped going to Starbucks for a year and saved $4,000.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It's dumb, like, it's,
Just-
what could I have done with that $4,000? That was the down payment to my BMW, dang it.
I tell your friends too, because I hear it as a realtor all the time. People tell me, I'm not ready, I'm ashamed to show my income, I don't want to do it now, I'm not ready. But whether you're ready now, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, if you talk to him and start working on your credit and start really aligning everything to get to where you want to be, the more likely you're going to achieve that goal in 2 years from now. So it's never too early to start, and really understanding your budgeting and cut out Starbucks. But it's so important because, you know, some people will be like, oh no, I don't want to tell you my credit score is so bad. But just like you were saying, it can go up quite quickly
Right.
if you do the right things and
Understanding-
focus on your goal.
Understanding it is the biggest piece, because if you don't understand
Knowledge is power.
how credit works and what things drive a credit score, like the biggest impact to your credit, then it's hard to even know where to start. Oh, I'm gonna pay down this credit card. Well, that's good, but we need to pay down all of them to 30, and then guess what? That credit score is gonna shoot up a bit.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna make sure we're making our payments on time. That's 2/3 of your credit score.
I think the other thing to bear in mind too is that, you know, talking to Jason and that team can help you avoid some pitfalls. Where you can, you know, maybe you're not that far off from having a great credit score. And then something happens, something goes wrong, or you accidentally walk into a situation where you destroy your credit. You know, Jason's team can help you avoid that situation too, because they'll be working with you on how to identify that pitfall that you might be accidentally walking into. But also, you know, what a predatory loan looks like, and so you don't get into a situation where you take out a predatory card, you know, a loan on a car or something that's really gonna destroy your credit and be impossible to ever pay off. But then, you know, how you can put all of that stuff together so that you can get to the point where you're empowering yourself to buy a house and not have to be a renter, you know, but you're also potentially saving yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime mortgage too, right?
And you know, it's easier to do that when you have somebody that's holding you accountable. Because I'm gonna call you every month and say, hey, how's the budget? What's our savings account look like? Well, I didn't put any money in there. Well, how many times? Right? You know, so when you have somebody looking at you, then you have to own that. You're like, okay, if I don't do this, it's my fault. So I think a lot of people need that little bit of a handhold to get them to that next hump. Because once you start to do it, then it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pay bills. I want to see how much you can put in savings today. This pay period, you know, it becomes a fun game, and then you see that grow, and it just makes you feel that much better. You know, because it plays a big part on your mental health too. So being on top of those things really does help.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
I have a really short announcement.
Announcements.
On April 6th, we have invited Colorado Poverty Law Project to be here to talk to us about mobile home rights. There's a lot of rights that we have. We're not gonna get them all into our systems in one time. So Blair Canis, it's an attorney, and she's coming to tell us about our rights and talk about eviction process, about the right to purchase mobile home parks. There's other items on the list. So for those of us who live in mobile home parks, or if you have any friends, invite them. It'll take place Thursday, April 6th from 7 to 8:30.
Where?
I have flyers here, this building.
Okay. There we go. I'll put that little thing too.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Say bye.
Yeah, I'll put it on my Facebook. That's awesome.